welcome to another episode of Fridays with Fawn. I'm your host, Fawn Lopez, publisher of Modern Healthcare and Vice President of Crane Communications. We're back for another episode, and today it is my pleasure to welcome a dear friend, Ruth Williams-Brinkley, Regional President, Mid-Atlantic States for Kaiser Permanente. Prior to joining Kaiser, Ruth's role included serving as CEO of Kentucky One Health, President and CEO of Carondelet Health Network in Tucson, Arizona, and President and CEO of Memorial Healthcare System in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Ruth has also been named to Modern Healthcare's top 25 women leaders in healthcare and top 25 minority leaders in healthcare. So Ruth, you've been with Kaiser since 2017 and recently moved across the country for a whole new role, very different role. Tell us about your career progression, taking on this new role and a cross-country move during a pandemic.
Well, Fawn, I did move across country at the height of the pandemic. I moved from Portland, Oregon to Washington, D.C., to the Mid-Atlantic states of Kaiser Permanente. And I will tell you, moving across country in a pandemic was a very interesting and rich experience, from the practical things of just getting my household goods packed and loaded on a truck and just taking a flight across country. And I hadn't flown for several months when I did it. So that was all very interesting, and I safely made it, and I'm thankful for that. If I go back to my career progression, I think you know that I'm a registered nurse by training, and I grew up in a rural area in Georgia, rural segregated area, and I was really fortunate to get a scholarship to the University of Chicago. I subsequently transferred to DePaul University, where I earned both my bachelor and master's degrees in nursing. And I lived most of my young adult life in Chicago. I then moved around many times for career progression. I've served at just about every role as a nurse, every management role, clinical role. And I've been a chief nurse a few times. And I was also a healthcare consultant working for a professional services firm. And then I started my career track as a CEO. And you mentioned the places I've been in Chattanooga, in Tucson, Arizona, and Kentucky. And then coming to Kaiser Permanente was really the culmination of what I would say a love affair with Kaiser from afar. I have admired Kaiser for many years and always thought, and still do believe, that Kaiser Permanente has the model for the country in terms of moving us forward in healthcare. So I am delighted to be here. I loved being on the West Coast in the Pacific Northwest, and I love being here. I have just found a home in all the places that I've lived, and I've lived in quite a few places.
Well, your story is so inspiring, Ruth, and it's amazing, your career progression, going from being a nurse to now. So what has been the most challenging aspect of starting a new role during this pandemic? And how did you overcome it? And what have you learned about yourself as a result?
I have learned a lot of things in moving into a new role during a pandemic. And it starts with everything from the people to the strategy of leading in a pandemic, and to just trying to get your feet on the ground. So one of the things that's really important to me is to invest in people. And in order to invest in people, you have to get to know them. So it's been really interesting to have to meet people who are either behind masks or who can only stand 6 feet or more from you, or who are on a Zoom screen or a different type of screen, but they're virtual. So I haven't been able to use my go-to strategy of just going out and mixing with people and having a lot of people in the same room and talking. So I've had to adjust. But I must say, people have been really gracious, and there's an advantage to being virtual in that you really have to pay attention when you're on the screen. If you're in a big room, sometimes you can sort of drift off and have your mind drift to other places. But I have learned so much about this team, and they just are an incredible team. From our employees, our leaders, our medical staff, our medical group. It's just been great. And that's part of the Kaiser model, the integrated model. I've enjoyed the health plan side, the care delivery side, and all of it. The other challenge has been really, none of us really know what's going to happen post-COVID. There are many projections of what's going to happen and when we can get back to what we used to know as normal. But Fawn, I'll have to tell you, I don't believe any of us really know when we will get back to whatever the new normal will be. And so I look at the impact on people, those who have lost loved ones. Many of our healthcare professionals in the health community have lost their lives, unfortunately. They've lost family members, they've lost neighbors and friends. And the economy has just been really just spiraling downward in light of the pandemic. And so trying to figure out what we will be and how will that look from a strategic standpoint post-COVID. One of the things, though, we did figure out pretty quickly was how we take care of patients and members in a COVID era. And so we quickly pivoted to virtual care, and we're still doing that. And we got our members in for those people that needed in-person care. So we made some strategic pivots very quickly, and I'm pleased to say that we figured it out, and we'll figure it out going forward.
So Ruth, you certainly touched upon many issues, challenging issues that we all have had to face, right? So it's tough to connect with people through Zoom, but I'm really glad that we have technology to so that we can continue to stay connected. So how has the past 7 months impacted you as a person? And you talked a little bit as how it has impacted you as a leader. So let's can we hear a little more from you about the impact that it has had on you?
Fawn, thank you for asking about how this has impacted me personally. I'll try to describe it as succinctly as I can. The civil unrest, the implications of racial injustice in this country has impacted me as a woman of color who has a family of color, who has children and grandchildren of color. I am concerned not only for my own personal being, but for the safety and the well-being of my family members and my friends. And so I have been greatly impacted by the killings that have occurred of people of color, women and men. And my hope and my dream is that we can be the America that we envision, and that was envisioned as having access to the American dream for all. And I want that for everyone. I want it for my family. I want it for your family and all the families out there. People just want to make a living for their families, and we need to figure out a way how to get along while doing that, and how to make the American dream available and accessible to all citizens.
Amen. Thank you for that. Very, very heartfelt sentiment. How have you been able to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally? And how have you been able to, and how do you support your staff to do the same?
Well, let me start with my staff first, and then I'll talk about myself in terms of how the support has gone. And so I've got a brand new staff. I've been here 4 months, around 4 months. And so I try to touch base with them regularly. I will call them, I text them. A lot of times it's about business, but a lot of times I just want to check in on them to see how they're doing. We've been able to do some virtual team development sessions because we will be most successful if we work as a team. It's stressful to get a new boss at any time, especially during a pandemic when you can't really be with people the way we're accustomed to. We've also been having a lot of town hall sessions with our managers, our leaders, and with our employees, and a lot of sessions dealing with some of the racial issues. So we've touched on all of that and are developing plans to support people through that. And I will say we've been supporting both our members and our employees with emotional and psychological support because the need during this pandemic has increased. As for myself, I think one of the biggest things for me, and I didn't recognize, I recognized it, but I don't think I truly appreciated it. When I came to the Mid-Atlantic states, I have family here. So I am not isolated by myself. And so that's been something that's been very helpful to me. I live in a multi-generational household with my daughter and her family, and she has children, and so she has little ones. I've had 2 of the little ones, both the 7-year-old and the 2-year-old, sort of bust into my Zoom calls periodically. And so that's been helpful, and you can't focus on yourself so much when you have these little ones. I think psychologically, I am blessed with a very resilient personality. And so the other thing I've started is I'm thankful for that. And the other thing I've done for myself is I've enrolled in a virtual fitness class. And every morning when I get up at dark 30, which is around 5:30, I'm like, I don't want to do this. But then when I finish, I'm so happy. And I told the person who's helping me that if I know myself well enough to know that I'll drop out. And I said, if I try to drop out, don't let me. So I've tried to drop out a couple of times, and I get sent to the principal's office and I get back on track. So that's helped me as well. But being near family, reaching out to other people are great psychological boosters for me.
Oh, great comments. And yes, you underscore the importance of keeping ourselves healthy, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yes.
It's critically important. Ruth, you have done so much as a leader, inside and outside of the organizations in which you work. You have been so supportive of your employees, your staff, your colleagues, myself included. Thank you for being such a great support system for me. You also founded the group for African-American women leaders while you were working in the Northwest. Can you tell us a little bit about this group?
Well, the group I founded, Fawn, was actually for African-American leaders broadly. I actually founded 3 groups when I was in the Northwest. One was for the one you're referring to is the one that's a chapter of the National Association of Health Services Executives, which is NASE. And so we formed a Pacific Northwest chapter for people to have growth and development opportunities and to have a connection to a larger national organization. I formed a group for women leaders to help with growth and development of women. And there were men that were part of that group. as well. And we, men who were allies and wanted to see women succeed, and they have daughters or sisters that they want to see succeed. And it was not at the exclusion of men, it was to make the table bigger so that women could be at the table as well. And then the other group we founded, something called the Village Welcome, where we had an event for all new leaders of color to the Metro Portland area. Now, none of these were done alone. I had wonderful staff who helped me, but I am particularly proud of all three of those. And they gave people an opportunity to express. And the last one, the one for the new leaders into the community, was a community event. And we invited people outside of Kaiser Permanente. And the first year, we were wondering if anybody would show up. And we got a crowd of about 200 with standing room only. And then the next year, we opened it up to more people. And we got a crowd of, I would guess, 500 or 600 people. And same thing with the women's conference and with the NACI group. So I am particularly proud of those things. They've had to sort of been scaled back during the pandemic, but I know that they're still going forward.
Wow, you're truly amazing. Where do you find time to do all of that? I'm really curious, though, what inspired you to create these groups, and what makes you most proud of what these groups have accomplished?
What made it resonate with me was the fact that Portland is not a very diverse area. Oregon isn't a very diverse state, but there's more diversity there than people know. And there are African Americans who were born and raised in Portland. And there are Asians that were born and raised in Portland. There are Hispanics who have relocated to Portland, Latinx people. So I just think that we have more diversity in that area than people knew, and there hadn't been a platform to bring those people together. And I wanted, and Portland at the same time has a history of racial strife, and so I wanted to bring forward to that community the fact that Kaiser Permanente started as a diverse organization, and we have a history in Portland as well in the shipyards when we were founded. So that was to bring the community together, and people really loved it. The second one was even more well attended, and we gave out some awards and so forth. And I think for the other two, for the one for women, I know that I would have appreciated having a woman mentor as I was coming up through the management ranks. And so I wanted to give that to women. And it was a group to help women. Not only we had a women's conference, but it was also to help people get career mentoring, career development, to get sponsors. We weren't able to do that because I left and the pandemic came. So those are goals for the future. And then for the NACI group, that was the Pacific Northwest chapter, it was really to give our younger African-American leaders and leaders of color an opportunity to have a peer group and a group of colleagues, professional colleagues. And it was for the community as well. And then we also, within Kaiser Permanente, have business resource groups that are African-American, that are women and so forth. So they were sort of sponsored, those things were co-sponsored by those groups. And so it was a way of giving back, a way of building community and letting people know that they were seen, that they were heard, and that they were important.
Wow, you are truly inspiring. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time and your experience with us. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your mission, vision, and value. Thank you for all that you do. Until next month, thank you to everyone watching, and save the date, please, for Women Leaders in Healthcare Conference in 2021. It will be on July 22nd and 23rd. Thanks again, and we'll see you next month.